My wife demanded my dad leave his fortune to her children, but she got legal papers instead. I'm 32. My father and I have always had a complex relationship. Growing up, I watched him build his real estate empire from nothing, working endless hours and making sacrifices that I only now understand. He wasn't always present for little league games or school events, but he made sure my sister and I had every opportunity possible. His divorce from my mother when I was a teenager could have torn us apart, but instead, it taught me about grace and maturity. They both put their children first, remaining amicable and supportive. Then I met Sophia. She seemed perfect, a widow with 4 wonderful children who needed a father figure. I was ready to step up, to be the family man I'd always wanted to be. My father welcomed them all with open arms. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags from the beginning. Sophia had a way of bringing up money that made me uncomfortable. At first, it was subtle, questions about my father's business, comments about college funds for the kids. I brushed it off as maternal concern. Now I know it was all part of her calculated plan. I found her journal later, and it chilled me to the core. She'd targeted me specifically after researching my family's wealth. The entries dated back to before we even met, detailed notes about my father's assets, business holdings, and potential vulnerabilities. The facade began cracking when my father updated his will. He was being more than generous, setting up $50,000 education trusts for each of Sophia's children, while leaving the bulk of his estate to my sister Lizzie and me. He'd also included provisions for my late stepmother's nieces and nephews, as per their prenuptial agreement. When Sophia found out, she exploded. I was in our home office when she burst through the door, her face flushed with anger. "How dare he?" she screamed, waving the paper with the trust fund details. $50,000, that's what your father thinks my children are worth. I tried to calm her down. "Sophia, that's just for their education. It's incredibly generous." "Generous?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Your sister's kids get millions, but mine get pocket change. They're your children too now, Owen, or have you forgotten that?" "Of course they're my children," I said, standing up from my desk. "But you have to understand." "No, you understand," she cut me off, jabbing her finger at my chest. "I want equal shares for all the grandchildren, all 6 of them. Your father's playing favorites, and I won't stand for it." "That's not his intention at all. Call him," she demanded, thrusting her phone at me. "Call him right now and tell him to change it." When I hesitated, her expression shifted. A cold smile spread across her face, and she placed her hand on her stomach in a gesture I'd never seen before. "You know," she said, her voice suddenly calm, "I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you something." She paused, watching my face. "I'm pregnant." My heart leaped with joy for a split second before I registered her calculating expression. "We're having a baby," I whispered. "Maybe," she said, her voice hard. "Depends on your father, really, because if he doesn't change that will, if he doesn't treat all my children equally." She let the threat hang in the air. "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm saying that if your father doesn't fix this, you'll never see this baby. I'll make sure of it. I'll move back home, file for sole custody, whatever it takes. Your choice." At that moment, everything crystallized. The timing of her announcement, the way she'd been asking about the will for weeks, her sudden interest in family law. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. She shrugged, dropping the act entirely. "Long enough. I was waiting for the right moment. Looks like it's now." My stomach churned as I realized the depth of her manipulation. The woman I loved, the mother of my child, was using our baby as a bargaining chip before it was even born. Things escalated quickly. Sophia hired a lawyer to contest the will, claiming discrimination against her children. She started a smear campaign within our family, painting my father as cruel and unfair. Some relatives actually took her side, not seeing the manipulation for what it was. Lizzie saw through it immediately. She works as a compliance officer at a bank and discovered something disturbing. Sophia had tried to open trust accounts for her children using forged documents, making it appear my father had already committed to leaving them equal shares of his estate. Even my mother, who typically stays out of family drama, called to warn me. Sophia had approached her, offering a percentage of any settlement in exchange for supporting her claims against my father's will. My mother declined and documented everything. The turning point came when Sophia started making threats about reporting supposed tax irregularities to the IRS. She recorded family conversations without consent, illegal in our state, hoping to catch something incriminating. When I filed for divorce, she threatened to move back to her hometown with her children and deny me access to our unborn child. But we were prepared. The evidence we'd gathered, security footage of her trying to access my father's office, fraudulent bank documents, illegal recordings, and witness statements, helped secure emergency orders preventing any relocation during the divorce proceedings. The legal proceedings revealed just how meticulously Sophia had planned everything. Our family's attorney assembled a devastating case against her. He obtained security footage from multiple family gatherings showing her attempting to access private areas of my father's house. There were recordings of her phone calls with various attorneys, seeking someone willing to challenge the will. Bank records showed she'd been moving money between accounts, preparing for what she assumed would be a profitable legal battle. The evidence trail led to discoveries about her past that shocked even our experienced legal team. They found a pattern of similar behavior in 3 different states, each instance involving wealthy families and manipulated inheritance claims. Sophia had refined her technique over the years, learning from each attempt how to better position herself for financial gain. She'd pulled similar schemes with her late husband's family, threatening to restrict access to the grandchildren unless they gave her a larger portion of the family trust. They'd settled privately to maintain relationships with the kids, but they'd documented everything. Our attorney's team uncovered emails between Sophia and various financial advisors, discussing strategies for gaining control of family assets. She'd even consulted with corporate takeover specialists, exploring ways to force changes in my father's company structure once she thought she had leverage through her pregnancy and my supposed support. The psychological evaluation ordered by the court painted a disturbing picture. The forensic psychologist identified a pattern of calculated behavior consistent with someone who views relationships primarily as opportunities for financial gain. The evaluation noted Sophia's tendency to target wealthy families with complex emotional dynamics, using children as leverage to exploit guilty feelings about family obligations. The Guardian ad litem's report was equally damning. Through interviews with Sophia's children, they discovered she'd been coaching them to express anxiety about their financial future, trying to pressure my father emotionally. The report also detailed how she'd systematically isolated me from friends who might have recognized her manipulation, gradually replacing my support system with people who reinforced her narrative. My father's business partners came forward with their own stories. Sophia had approached several of them, suggesting they pressure my father to recognize the importance of keeping business in the family by giving her children equal shares. She'd even hinted at having damaging information about past deals, though this proved to be another bluff. The criminal investigation expanded as more evidence emerged. The detective, who led the case, discovered Sophia had attempted to access my father's business records through a former employee she'd befriended. She'd offered the employee a percentage of any settlement she might receive in exchange for confidential information about the company's operations. Sophia eventually accepted a plea deal, 90 days in jail, 5 years probation, mandatory psychiatric treatment, and financial monitoring. I received primary custody of our son, who was born during this period, with Sophia getting supervised visitation twice weekly. Through her parents, I maintained contact with my former stepchildren, who I'd grown to love despite everything. My father kept his original estate plan, but added extra legal safeguards. The education trusts for my former stepchildren remained, managed by a corporate trustee to prevent manipulation. Sophia lost her notary license and was barred from working in any fiduciary capacity. Looking back, I'm grateful for my family's strength through this ordeal. My sister and I grew closer, and even my parents, though divorced, united to support me. Sophia's schemes cost her everything: her freedom, her reputation, and most importantly, her ability to use children as pawns in her financial games. I'm focused now on raising my son and maintaining whatever relationship possible with my former stepchildren. Their grandparents help facilitate visits, putting the children's well-being above past conflicts. The irony isn't lost on me. In trying to force her way into my father's will, Sophia lost far more than any inheritance would have provided. Sometimes I wondered how I missed the signs. The careful way she'd ask about my father's business holdings, her intense interest in estate law, the casual suggestions about joint accounts. She'd even started hinting at me taking a more active role in my father's business, positioning herself as the supportive wife encouraging family involvement. I later learned she'd been secretly meeting with business consultants, planning how she'd influence company decisions once she thought she had leverage. She'd even drafted letters to my father's business partners, introducing herself as a future stakeholder in the company. Her schemes had layers I'm still uncovering. Bank statements showed she'd been setting aside money, preparing for what she assumed would be a profitable confrontation with my family. She'd even started taking online courses in real estate development, positioning herself to claim she was qualified to help run my father's company. The detailed notes in her journal revealed how she'd studied my father's business practices, looking for any hint of impropriety she could use as leverage. She'd tracked his partners, researched his developments, even hired a private investigator to look into his past deals. Her dedication to destroying my family was as thorough as it was chilling. Today, I'm rebuilding my life, wiser but not bitter. My son, now 3, is a daily reminder that even the darkest clouds have silver linings. My relationship with my father has evolved into something stronger and more authentic than I ever imagined possible. Working together to protect our family from Sophia's schemes showed us both what truly matters. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, family, and the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's painful. My father's unwavering support through this ordeal helped heal old wounds I hadn't even recognized were there. Sometimes we find our greatest strength in the moments we're tested most severely. I still maintain contact with my former stepchildren through their grandparents, who have shown remarkable grace throughout this situation. The children's resilience continues to amaze me. They're thriving now, free from the pressure of being used as bargaining chips in their mother's schemes. Looking ahead, I've finally accepted my father's invitation to join the family business, not out of obligation, but because I've seen firsthand the importance of protecting and nurturing a legacy built on integrity. Sometimes the path we're meant to take isn't clear until life's storms force us to seek shelter in the strength of family bonds. Sophia's attempt to destroy my family ultimately failed because she never understood what truly makes a family strong. It's not money or inheritance, but the willingness to stand together against those who would tear us apart. Sometimes the greatest threats to family come disguised as people claiming to protect it, but true family love proves itself in actions, not words or legal documents.